The divine blueprint. Prophets as subcontractors in a progressive construction. The prophets of the past can be likened to subcontractors for a great structural engineering firm, each entrusted with a specific phase in the construction of a vast divine city. This celestial city, symbolic of a future unified and spiritually mature humanity, is not built all at once, but in stages according to the evolving capacity of its inhabitants. Each subcontractor, Moses, Jesus, Muhammad, brings a makeshift structure, built with purpose but also with planned obsolescence. These are not eternal superstructures but temporary housing, protective scaffolds, or preparatory blueprints designed to last for a specific duration. Moses, 1500 years. Jesus, 622 years. Muhammad, 60 years. Just as temporary site shelters are constructed from terrible materials, meant to shelter but also to be dismantled, the laws and frameworks these prophets brought contained within them the seeds of their own eventual expiration. These were never meant to be permanent. They were merciful and time-bound, suited to the developmental phase of humanity at the time. Islam, scaffolding with an expiry date. Take the example of Islam. The Quran provided a profound moral framework for a fragmented and tribal society. Yet within its very code were deliberate constraints, perhaps designed to challenge future generations and signal the need for renewal. Surah 434 permits striking a disobedient wife, a ruling reflecting the patriarchy of its time, yet in tension with modern notions of dignity. Was this meant to endure eternally, or to provoke moral awakening as society evolved? Surah 2178 outlines an unequal application of justice between men and women, slaves and freemen, an acknowledgement of the tribal hierarchy then dominant, yet ethically unsettling today. Muhammad's marriage to Zainab, his adopted son's ex-wife, challenged Arab customs and served as a social reform, but also created lasting controversy, perhaps deliberately, to resist idolization of the law and highlight its contextuality. His special exemptions to marry more wives, to have guests dismissed politely, 3353 and more, are not signs of indulgence, but reminders that the messenger is part of the scaffolding, not the final edifice. The Quran hints that Islam has a defined span. The symbolic number 1,000 years appears in various hadiths and is interpreted in Babi and Baha'i texts as the intended lifespan of the Islamic dispensation before renewal. Christianity, a faith destined to strain and divide. Likewise, in Christianity we find brilliant spiritual radiance but also embedded fractures, divinely permitted, even intentional. No gospel written by Jesus. He left no personal scripture, and the early movement relied on oral memory. This led to multiple gospels, theological disagreements, and fragmentation, perhaps to prevent fossilization into one rigid form. Peter chosen despite foreseen failure. Jesus appoints Peter as the rock of the church, even though he predicts Peter will deny him 3 times. This isn't a mistake. It is a metaphor for fallibility within the church's foundations, foreshadowing corruption, sectarianism, and decline. Paul's conversion eclipses the apostles. The boldest and most theologically inventive figure in Christianity was not an eyewitness, but a former persecutor. Jesus appears to Paul in a vision after his resurrection, handing the reins to someone who would redefine the faith, suggesting that Christianity was always meant to be reshaped and outgrown. Abolishing divorce, Matthew 5:32. While noble in intent, this law is nearly unlivable. In practice, it led to immense suffering and hypocrisy in Christian history, possibly a deliberate pressure point to show that the system was morally unsustainable in the long term. A pattern of deliberate transience. In all 3 Abrahamic revelations, we see the same divine architecture. Laws that reform but do not perfect. Institutions built to unite but also to fracture. Leaders who are noble yet fallible. Scriptures that inspire but also confuse. And durations that are fixed, though not always visibly so. These are not flaws. They are divine signatures of progressive revelation. Each messenger knew that his revelation was provisional, that he was part of a sequence, not the final goal, but a pillar in the grand cathedral of human spiritual evolution. Toward the superstructure. In this light, the coming of a new revelation, such as that of the Bab and Baha'u'llah, is not heresy but fulfillment. It is the next stage in the divine plan, the laying of permanent foundations after centuries of preparation. The makeshift tents and wooden beams of previous ages give way to the steel and stone of universal unity, gender equality, global justice, and spiritual maturity. The prophets were not rivals. They were co-contractors, serving the same architect. They did not contradict each other. They handed off the blueprint, each building upon the last, until humanity is ready to dwell in the city of God.